Morning, everyone. Well, Miss Hajdu is being taken to task here by Evan, and we're going to watch it. And here we go. He's asking about quotes historically that she said, like, suspension of flight is not effective at all. I'll let him do it, but I wrote this out just beforehand to keep myself straight. Here we go.
February 17th, you said that the suspension of flights to and from China and closing the borders, and I'll quote you, was not effective at all as controlling the spread of the disease. You also said in the long term, they create a greater risk to public health. You also praised China as being very open. Were you wrong about that, Minister? And I think it's important to know that because we still got a long road ahead.
Well, I think, the praise that I offered China in the early days was based on their historic containment efforts. Don't forget, there were, multiple millions and millions of Chinese people under essentially confinement, if you will, for a very long time. In fact, in some of those cities, people are just getting back to normal. And that was a public health measure that had never been seen before. Those containment efforts ultimately failed. And, I will point to the fact that I stand by the remarks on that I made around borders. I mean, listen, we now have stronger measures on our borders. It became very clear that other countries.
She said, I stand by the remarks I made on borders, and now we have stronger measures on our borders. What she said is closing borders is not effective at all at reducing the spread of the virus. And now we have stronger measures at our borders, and everyone's locked down in their house. This is word salad, right? I'm not misunderstanding, because it seems like this is word salad trying to get out of answering the question. Okay, back to the minister for the last 20 seconds.
Did not have a good handle on what their outbreaks were looking like, including countries like Iran and Italy who were struggling. And so as the evidence emerged and as we found new challenges, of course, we took new measures based on the public health advice we were getting. And you know what? I am grateful for a country that believes in evolving science.
Evolving science. Like, as new data becomes available, the government would then recommend different things based on the new data. I love this idea. How about this new science, Minister? And I'm wondering how quickly Canada will follow suit, but I've got some tabs to show you, so let's have a look. COVID-19 Crusher is tweeting, breaking ranks with Canada. The province of New Brunswick has adopted hydroxychloroquine early April as evidence in the link below. And you can see Canada is red, New Brunswick is blue, and green is Nova Scotia as a control, similar size, etc. And that's number of recovered cases. So you've got two kind of control groups: Canada, the whole population of the country averaged out, and then you've got Nova Scotia, a smaller subset of the population averaged out and remapped over top, and then you've got New Brunswick, who's got a lot more recovered cases. Isn't that interesting? And here's the article, and I thought, well, maybe they've got lots of deaths. Maybe they've got lots of recoveries, but maybe there's a high infection rate and there's lots of deaths. In New Brunswick, here, it's under me here, I'll scroll it up. There's 0 deaths. 0 deaths? 0 deaths. There's 0 deaths. Okay. That's wonderful. Good for them. I consistently say, let's stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Let's do what successful places are doing, so we can hopefully replicate their success and then start from there. It's the same as not starting at 7 to count to 10, right? Like if you're at 7 and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or if you just start at 7 and go 8, 9, 10. Why are we not standing on the shoulders of these New Brunswickian giants? I don't understand it. Like it doesn't make much sense to me. Here's the article that goes with this. It is a French written article, so this is translated into English, so excuse any translation mistakes. Link is in the description if you want to read for yourself. COVID-19, New Brunswick moves forward with hydroxychloroquine. Chloroquine. I keep getting it wrong. Sorry. Anyway, apologies. Moving on. New Brunswick becomes the first province in Canada to organize and authorize the use of hydroxychloroquine to treat certain patients with COVID-19. Quote, what we want to do is certainly make hydroxychloroquine accessible to patients in the community at the very beginning of their illness. If we make a parallel with the flu, the benefits come when the treatment is administered early, explained Dr. Gabrielle Girard, excuse me if I've got that wrong, microbiologist, infectiologist at the CHU, Dr. George L. Dumont in Moncton in New Brunswick, speaking to Sophie Dershwer, excuse me if I've got that wrong, on QUB Radio Thursday. While some scientists believe it could help avoid the serious complications of COVID-19, the drug continues to be controversial among experts. Quote, the right thing to do is also to use your doctor's judgment. We said to ourselves, given the scale of the crisis with a healthcare system that is collapsing everywhere on the planet, should we rather here use our clinician's hat and use the right clinical judgment? The microbiologist, infectiologist, and a group of experts met to analyze and look at all the data concerning the clinical trials carried out on patients suffering from COVID-19. We started with the idea of treating patients early with hydroxychloroquine. So we believe in it. We have reviewed the data. The data are satisfactory for us to make a decision. And again, in the face of an unparalleled health emergency in living memory, he added, Dr. Gabriel Drew. And that's a weird ending, but it's paralleling, or it's paraphrasing the interview. So, and it's translated in Google Translate. So apologies to that. But I want to highlight this as well. Here's CTV News, and this is just a headline. New Brunswick is opening up, right? It's one of the first. How New Brunswick is using household bubbles to socialize amid COVID-19. Now, I think this is kind of a dumb idea, and I said before that you need buy-in from the public to do this. At a certain point, it just seems like too much normal, so everybody will just go back to normal. And who knows? That may happen by itself anyway. Who knows? Fines aside, right? But isn't it interesting that New Brunswick is one of the first opening up? And here's another article talking about golf courses to open in New Brunswick and Saskatchewan. That's April 27th, right? So if you're a fan of golf, move to New Brunswick or Saskatchewan. Here's another article. New Brunswick bans temporary foreign workers to curb COVID-19 risk. Now, this is an article. So the idea that using hydroxychloroquine is, I know, right, is not the cure-all necessarily, but might it help get through this crisis? Might it help return to normal life? I asked on Twitter the other day if after we get this vaccine for for COVID-19, are we going to then double down and find a vaccine for malaria, or are we going to just keep using hydroxychloroquine to treat malaria? Right? Like I think it's a valid question. If I don't even think COVID-19 has hit malaria level deaths yet worldwide. I think it's around 200,000. I think malaria this year is 330,000 people. So 200,000, 330,000. And that's just off the top of my head from a chart I saw yesterday. So please fact check in the comments. I'll correct if I'm incorrect. But that's just approximations. I could be wrong. But I think that the damage and the collateral damage that is being done by the closure of the hospitals, by the closure of our wider economy, by the closure of the potential meat plants, all of that stuff. And that's interesting too. Donald Trump has made meat plants open, right? He's making sure that protein will continue to be delivered regardless. So that's interesting because Canada's threatening shortages. I've seen lots of Twitter discussions on this. Meat plants shutting down because of the people being sick. So is using hydroxychloroquine as a stopgap to normalcy acceptable to people? Given the alternatives, I think it probably is. So I think that it's really weird to have so many people pushing back on it like it's no solution at all, when there are a lot of people who rely on it for arthritis, for lupus, for malaria. So what makes COVID-19 different than those others? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. I'd love to be informed. And this is interesting because on its face, you think, yeah, okay. I think this illustrates for me this article. Then moving on from the hydroxychloroquine, and sorry if I said it wrong a few times. This on its face makes me sad because it shouldn't be that we have put ourselves into this situation. It shouldn't be that Canada has put itself into this situation. We are reliant on foreign workers in a way that has people begging to allow the foreign workers into New Brunswick, because without them, the farm is going to fail. So when I saw the headline, I said, I agree with that. I read through the article and I thought, it's more complicated than that, because it is more complicated than that. But the worst part is there's no quick fix, right? There's no quick fix. We need to incentivize people having babies. We need to prioritize and re-centralize the family as something that's important in our society, and not being an accountant at a desk because your friends and coworkers will somehow be there for you when you're old. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. Your kids might be, if you're okay, if you're not an awful, terrible person to them. They might be there when you're old, right? But they're people too, and they could make different choices. But you've got a way better chance of your kids being there when you're old and on your deathbed, maybe to read to you or to get you a drink if you need it, than Karen or Phil from accounting, right? Or from down the hall in IT or whatever. Like, and that's what's being sold. Like, replace your family with these IT people. I'm diatribing, but it is incredibly sad that we're this far down the path, and the fix seems laughable to educated people, right? And they say, oh, you can't do that. Hungary's doing that. I think Poland's doing that too. I think Hungary to better success, but regardless. Anyway, here's the New Brunswick article. Bans temporary foreign workers to curb COVID-19 risk. Get ready to go on a journey. All right, here we go. The New Brunswick government will ban any new temporary foreign workers from entering the province as a way of reducing the risk of COVID-19. Premier Blaine Higgs says an influx of more workers is too much of a health risk, and he called on New Brunswickers, I apologize, and foreign workers already in the province to fill vacancies in the agricultural and seafood processing sectors. Under normal circumstances, we welcome temporary foreign workers in our province, Higgs said Tuesday. They play an important role in New Brunswick's continued economic growth, but right now the risk of allowing more people to enter the province is simply too great. That could leave farmers like Murray Tweedy of Kookaburra. Oh man, I've got that so wrong. I apologize. I'm going to just carry on. Owner of M&S Wild Blueberry Farms facing closure. And here he is, right? That's Mr. Murray Tweedle. Or Tweedy. Tweedy said 24 workers are due to arrive from Jamaica on May 4th to help prepare his fields for pollination by 700 hives of bees coming from Michigan 9 days later. Quote, we simply don't have the time to change our course, Tweedy said. We need those workers and we need them now. That will leave me unable to continue our farming operation point blank. We will be out of business. Tweedy said some of his workers were due to arrive before now, but were delayed. With a mandatory 14-day quarantine for new arrivals in the province, the pollination timeline would be hard to achieve even if they landed now, he said. Higgs said at his daily afternoon COVID-19 briefing that the province would work with producers like Tweedy to shift some of the 1,500 foreign workers already in the province to fill gaps at his farms and others. He said there are enough of them and enough local workers to do the work. Let's find a solution together, Higgs said. If there ever was a time that people were needed to step up and be part of the solution, now is that time. But Tweedy said the Premier's suggestion is a non-starter. That does not fulfill our total need for workers, he said, explaining that the Jamaicans who have come to his farm year after year are already trained. They know the farm, they know the equipment, and without them, we're going to struggle. This is terrible, terrible news. Tweedy said that he has been trying to hire local workers for the position since last November and has managed to find only 2 people. He choked up as he described how he also needs the workers to mow the fields for the 2021 season, meaning that could be ruined too. I'm 73 years old, he said. I can only do so much. Federal Cabinet Minister Dominic LeBlanc, sorry, I just want to see him again. 73. He's in good shape, right? He should have 4 or 5 people there ready to take over, right? Anyway, back to the article here. Federal Cabinet Minister Dominic LeBlanc said the Trudeau government disagreed with the decision because there were already enough economic uncertainty in the agricultural and seafood sectors because of COVID-19. A decision at the last minute to destabilize the labor force that's necessary in the fish processing plants is of concern to us, he said. LeBlanc, whose riding includes processing plants that use foreign workers, said finding local recruits to take those jobs is a constant challenge. The idea that we can find local workers to replace these temporary foreign workers is not as easy as it seems. Well, shocking, right? And I mean, here's another example, and this is just a Huffington Post piece, but I searched Tim Hortons foreign workers, and here are the headlines, just a smattering from Huffington Post. Tim Hortons whistleblowers fear possible deportation. Tim Hortons CEO, we need foreign workers or your double-double will suffer. Timmy's exploiting foreign workers? Double-double labor trouble. Okay, that's an example, right? I could go into it. Temporary workers accuse Tim Hortons boss of cheating them. So this isn't just farms that are using this, right? Every business is using, or not every business, but there are many businesses in a globalist market that are going to go where they can find cost savings, right? And if everybody's doing it from Toyota down to Tim Hortons, and certain people are being punished for that, having that cut off, I mean, we've set up a situation where the government basically said, don't worry about your farm and propagating it down time. You'll always be able to access this tool, basically. And now we're in a situation where you can't access the tool. So he's in a catch-22 made not by himself, right? The farmer here is a victim in this. And I mean, there are a lot of victims in this, but see, the headline doesn't relay the whole thing. It's a complicated mess. It's a complicated mess, right? How do you deal with this? And there's no quick fix, right? It takes a long time to fix a problem like this. It takes a long time to get the trust enough to, and I mean the necessity, right? The cost inflated enough to have the farmers move to these positions and have all these temporary foreign workers as people who they have to rely on. And now, gone, right? Because the government said no, right? Wild, isn't it? And we're necessarily subject to that. That is absolutely, we're at the government's whim. Do you like your house? I hope you do. Back to the article. LeBlanc said a chartered flight from Mexico with workers for processing plants in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick was due to land in Halifax overnight. Now those workers will be limited to Nova Scotia, putting New Brunswick at a competitive disadvantage, he said. Agricultural and seafood companies persuaded the federal government to exempt temporary foreign workers from the closure of the Canadian border last month. Higgs said he told Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland of the decision Monday night and asked for flexibility to allow the shifting foreign workers already here as needed. I won't apologize for protecting New Brunswickers, he said. Asked if the three opposition party leaders on his all-party COVID-19 cabinet committee had endorsed the decision, Higgs said they had agreed on a path forward that included fewer foreign workers. Green Party MLA Kevin Arsenault denounced the decision, saying the province could have helped foreign workers self-quarantine by providing hotel rooms, then leave farmers in the lurch. I don't think this is in any way a responsible decision, he said. Dr. Jennifer Russell, the chief medical officer of health, would not answer directly when asked if she had advised Higgs to ban any more foreign workers. I'll explain why they're like, this guy's an MLA, right? That means he's not in the government. He's helping with the structure of the government. And so people like that comment, I guess, sometimes. But once you're in the government, and if you're part of a task force like this, once you choose a path, you can't really denounce the path, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, if you're all in agreement, even if you disagree in inside, you have to have a broad agreement outside. Does that make sense? Like, to the public or whatever? Back to the article. I don't know why Justin Trudeau doesn't weigh in on it. Back to this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did not answer directly Tuesday when asked if provinces have the legal authority to ban temporary foreign workers. Provinces will have different approaches, he said. The situation is very different across the country. The provinces will make decisions that prove to be the best within their jurisdictions. Constitutionality questioned, but Joanne Barron, executive director of the Canadian Constitution Foundation, said Higgs' move may be unconstitutional. It's quite clear the movement of individuals between provinces is clearly a federal power, she said. It's not a provincial power. Oh, really? It's not? Here's an April 1st article saying Quebec police set up checkpoints at Ottawa-Gatineau border, and there's been lots of other 8 regions of Quebec that have been shut down, and you can't go into Quebec from Ontario, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, and Newfoundland is imposing quarantine. I don't know if that's not really limiting travel, but Quebec is certainly limiting travel. So I think that that's a bunch of hooey. So moving on to the last, there's 2 stories here. Last 2 stories. So yeah, going to be a bit long today. Quebec has seen Canada's worst COVID-19 outbreak, but plans to reopen faster than anywhere else. Quebec has seen the most COVID-19 cases and deaths than any other province, but it also plans to reopen businesses and schools faster than anywhere else. The province's schedule stands in sharp contrast to Ontario and other provinces who are moving more slowly, even provinces where new cases have effectively disappeared. New Brunswick has reported 0 new cases for 10 days in a row, but is still taking more gradual steps than Quebec, which reported 775 new cases and 83 new deaths on Tuesday alone. On Tuesday, Quebec Premier François Legault announced that most retail stores will be able to reopen on May 4, except in Montreal, which will be a week later. The construction and manufacturing sectors will be allowed to start reopening May 11th, the following Monday's announcement that elementary schools and daycares will start reopening on May 11th. Our challenge is to gradually restart the economy without restarting the pandemic, Legault said, adding that announcements for more sectors to reopen will come over the next few weeks. The idea is to gradually add workers and analyze the effect of the contagion. But one thing is clear, if we want our plan to work, we need to continue our efforts of physical distancing, and we need to continue to protect the most vulnerable. Horacio Arruda, excuse me if I got that wrong, Quebec's public health director, said the virus will continue to circulate and needs to be carefully managed, but said it's also important to balance other health objectives, such as mental health, that are affected by shuttering the economy. I think that it's a very interesting approach. I mean, like, there's a lot more people now with COVID-19 in Quebec than there have been before. And so, I mean, at the beginning of this, they're like, we need to close ASAP for emergency health reasons. And now they're opening up with more cases every day, et cetera. I think that it looks like they're going for herd immunity. And I'm glad that they're opening up. That's good news. I like to see economies opening up. I think that if they had a mask protocol in place, like, I think there's a pathway to this, but I think that it's strange. Like, again, what they told us and their actions, very different, right? Is this thing contagious and deadly, or is it, go back to school, contagious and deadly? I don't know. It's weird. Here's the last story for this morning. This is a collateral damage story. So this is the Minister of Health in Ontario talking about 35 people who've potentially died of heart attacks or other cardio-related deaths because they couldn't have their scheduled heart surgeries. So this is collateral damage from COVID-19. This is the first time that the Ontario government has admitted that that their approach has resulted in deaths. So here we go.
Well, I understand that a report has been released today by UHN with respect to cardiac deaths, and that has been estimated that approximately 35 people may have passed away because their surgeries were not performed.
And so, every decision carries a consequence. Even if you think it's the right decision, even if you believe that, well, it's the trolley problem, right? Anybody watch The Good Place? The trolley problem is bigger than The Good Place, but that's the most famous recent incarnation, where you're driving a runaway trolley and you can either kill 2 people or kill 5 people, right? And you have to make the choice. And there's no way to save any of them. You can only make a choice, right? So, and this is going to happen. When you talk about policy, this is real life, right? Kobayashi Maru, unwinnable situations, they happen in real life, and it's unfortunate. And we could have potentially done something. We have pathways to other somethings that we could use, right? We have, it looks like, and I'm not a doctor, but there are doctors who believe in it. There are people who are using this treatment regimen. And so the tragedies should be limited. We should have had a plan, and there was a plan for Ebola, to have hospitals treat Ebola patients only, right? And then other hospitals carry on as normal, and then you filter people. We could have done something like that. I mean, there are a lot of pathways, but hindsight is 2020. It's easy to say we could have, should have, would have. It's unfortunate that our leaders were so slow to act. It's unfortunate that our leaders are continually slow to act. And it's unfortunate that our parliament is not sitting, right? Like, they're sitting 1 day a week. Who does that in an emergency? There's an emergency, guys. Let's all go home and hope this whole thing blows over, right? Go to the Winchester, right? Have a pint. It just seems like a really bad plan. It seems consistently Canada has had a really bad plan with how to deal with this. And it hasn't seemed to get better, right? As this thing has gone on. Stay in your homes, wash your hands. That's been the plan, and that's continually the plan. And it doesn't seem like they're interested in sciencey science. They're interested in, we got caught and have to apologize science, right? So that's frustrating too. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And tomorrow I've got Frank Vaughn on Speaking Moistly with me. So we're going to be talking about a lot of this. Like, there's going to be a lot of this coming up. So I hope you'll join us. It should be out tomorrow afternoon or evening. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful